Hey, how's it going? Ray Reese, Reese's Masterpieces. As some or probably most of you know, so in between fitness, I drive Lyft. And while I have a number of stories that I would, that people have been asking me to sort of share and or record or what have you, reenact, don't have the time for that right now, but if and when I do, it'll go into this playlist. So doing Lyft allows me the freedom to do fitness whenever I like. So I can, though I could in theory do fitness full time, as in that's just what I don't like that. I'm realizing that while I do enjoy personal training and my clients seem to think that I am good at it, there is like a select spectrum within which I care to operate as it pertains to working with clients. And you don't always have those options or that choice working at a gym. There's only certain types of classes that I want to teach, and you don't necessarily have that freedom. Working at a gym, we're just simply pursuing fitness full time, where you're trying to take every class, every client, every subbing opportunity, and it's just like, it got old, like me. But anyway, Lyft allows me, it's not an endorsement. I don't happen to drive for Uber, but if that's where you want to go, then that's your business. So I would say that, is it ride sharing? Being a ride share driver allows me a freedom that I haven't known previously, and allows me, like I said, to just focus on the fitness jobs that I want to take and that I want to do. That allows me the freedom to record these videos. So that being said, I had a question from one of our viewer question. Somebody had questions about Uber/Lyft, saying that they were having a difficult time paying student loans. And since they recently acquired a car, thinking that doing Uber or Lyft might be helpful. And they wanted to know my thoughts, what the pros and cons, do's and don'ts were, generally how much does a person make, and stuff like that. Okay, so one, I only do Lyft. This isn't an endorsement for Lyft, but I do Lyft, and I specifically don't do Uber because I haven't had positive experiences with the company. As a passenger, as a Uber Eats customer, as a driver. So I was a driver for Uber for like one day. And also, I should mention, Uber has had some horrific just PR issues and snafus and whatnot at an executive level. So I was like, don't know that I want any part of that. And I don't feel like Uber screens its drivers well enough. I mean, like, no disrespect, but like, if you look in the news or you Google driver attacks passenger, like 99 out of 100 times it's an Uber driver. Now, that doesn't mean that there's anything about Uber that makes people attack passengers, but it means that I don't want to be associated with that type of press. But to that end, I applied for Lyft first. Like, I think I applied on a Friday. I applied for Uber second, so I think I applied on a Saturday. Uber approved me first, which I thought was kind of odd, because I'm like, well, how are you approving me before the people that I applied with before you? Well, Lyft, at least as far as my experience, they sent somebody out to meet me, who talked to me, who showed me how to use the app, took my photo, took a photo of my car, looked my car over to make sure that everything was everything that I said it was on the app. Then I had to drive that person around the block once or twice, right? And only after that did I get like my sticker. Maybe I got the sticker before, but it was only after that that I was like, yeah, that I was approved, official, right? Uber just sent me a sticker. That's it. I was like, hey, I want to drive Uber. They're like, good, here's your sticker. Good luck. So I literally, once I started driving Lyft, I didn't really even have a need. Like, I know there are people that jockey back and forth between Uber and Lyft, and I've never really had enough downtime to say to myself, hey, you know what, I wish I was on two different platforms. Now, have been times where I'm like, damn, this is dead. But I would also assume that it might be dead for Uber as well, maybe not. But two things with that is, if it's dead with downtime, then I'm cool. I can relax. I can chill. I'll make the money up elsewhere, right? Whatever. It's time off. And I don't want to have to, I also don't want to have to do all of the, like the switching back and forth and the jockeying between two apps to maximize. Like, I'm not trying to be fishing for dollars. No disrespect to folks that do that, but it's just not what I want to do, right? And so I do know that for both of them, your car has to be a certain year or later. I think it might be within 10 years, because I started in 2017 and my car had to be like a 2007 or newer. Uber, I think, was like 2004 or newer. Uber's got some pretty lax policies. So I don't know, maybe I don't know, that's just them. There's the pros and cons, do's and don'ts, generally how much of the person makes, stuff like that. Let me tell you a little bit about me so that you understand where I'm coming from when I talk about pros and cons and how much you can make, because it's going to be filtered through my experiences. So you figure, as of today, as of this filming, I'm a 43-year-old male. I live in North Philly, I live near Temple University, which is still in the metropolitan area. So I'm like a mile and a half outside of Center City. I'm, 2.5 miles, 3 miles away from University City, so on and so forth, right? I live very modestly on purpose so that I don't have to have concerns about finances. So like I'm not married, I have no kids. My expenses are way cheap on purpose. So how much I can make versus how much I need to make are two totally different things. But I will still touch on that. I'm also, I've been a self-defense instructor. I am, 250 pounds and work out and so I, with that, probably aren't going to have a lot of the same concerns that a lady might have. So there is a degree of male privilege that I, have behind the wheel, that somebody else, whether, female or non-binary or what have you, might have to face. So as far as pros, the number one pro, the number one thing, hands down, that I've heard from Uber, Lyft, people, it's the freedom. It is the freedom. It is the clock in when I want, clock out when I want. That alone, there's no quota. Generally speaking, there's no quota. The car that I drive, I have through Lyft. I sold my car. So one of the cons, obviously damage and repairs to your car, whatever. But I started driving Lyft with a car that already had 107 or 117,000 miles on it. So once things started falling apart, they were falling apart way more rapidly because I was putting 3 months of wear and tear on the car in 1 month, a year's worth of wear and tear in 3 to 4 months. So repairs were coming and coming and coming and coming. So I got to a point where I was just driving Lyft to pay for the repairs that I needed to make from having driven Lyft. The whole thing of I need to get a car to get a job and I need a job to get a car sort of thing. It became like this thing. So eventually I was able to get rid of my car and I got this vehicle through Lyft. So technically it's a rental or whatever. I think Uber does leases, which is why I didn't do that, because I didn't want to be stuck with that for 3 years. But you have your own car. So the pros, number one pros, you can literally log on when you want, log off when you want. If you have your own car, you don't have any quotas. With this car, I do have certain quotas. Like I have to drive a minimum of 20 rides a week in order to keep the car. And then there's X amount of, you get a discount on the rental cost or what have you. You get bonuses for having driven more and more and more rides. I think it's like 90 rides and then 110 rides and like 135 rides and you get varied discounts. But there's not going to be any greater pro than the freedom that you have doing it. There's no greater, you figure there have been times where I'm like, oh snap, I forgot that this bill, I've got this new bill that's coming through, or I had this bill deferred for like 6 weeks and oh yeah, it's coming. I owe this $50 and even though I'll have it 2 days from now, if it hits tonight or if it hits tomorrow, that's gonna be an overdraft. And I've just gotten in the car and driven till I made $50, deposited it right then and there, because let me go back to that. Deposited right then and there, and then paid my bill that I needed to pay. Like you could get up at 2 a.m. in the morning and decide you want to go make some money. Obviously, that's less of a time, but it's like, hey, if you're available, you want to sit in the car. Well, you probably wouldn't, but if you could decide Sunday at noon, hey, I want to try to make some money, and you could take a book, you could be on the internet watching YouTube videos until you do or don't get a ride, The other pro is that you get paid whenever you want. So like if you don't cash out, they'll pay you like every Wednesday. So you get paid weekly, but you can cash out literally like if you've made more than $5 in the day, you can say, gimme right now. And it'll put it into your account within like an hour or whatever. And you, so like Wednesday, if you wait till Wednesday and they deposit it automatically, then it's free for a deposit. But if you cash out on a daily basis, you've got to pay 50 cents. Oh, you have a 50-cent like early withdrawal thing. So those are the two main pros, but still, by far and large, it's the freedom. That's number one. Cons. I mean, you figure with any job, there's a level of uncertainty, but I don't know if this is a con as much as it's just an aspect of this type of work. You're a freelance independent contractor, and much like any other freelance independent contractor, the work is going to be inconsistent, but you get a sense of what works, and what doesn't. Like for example, like I know I'm going to make more money now that students are back in school. I'm going to hit like some 3:00 rushes for parents trying to pick up their kids. I'm going to, got college students that are living near Temple University. I've got college students that are going to either A, be calling rides, or going to be sucking up all of the other available cars, and then I can get the rest of the neighborhood folks. And like I said, another pro is that you could in theory you could work as many hours as you like, right? But you don't know, you're not getting paid hourly, so you don't know exactly how much you're going to get paid. Sometimes the rides are awesome, sometimes they're not. So the cons are going to be the uncertainty. And any other cons are really just dependent on your preferences. Obviously, you're going to have to pay for auto repairs, but then you expense those at the end of the year. However, depending on how new your car is, you should probably be good for a bit. Is that really? You gotta deal with passengers, and so I like people. People tend to like me, and I like driving. So these are three things that are good that make this not seem like work as much. It's still a job, but I can sort of add that to my specific pro column, is that it doesn't feel like work. It feels like I'm driving around listening to music and every once in a while having a pleasant conversation with some stranger in my back seat. Do's and don'ts. The do's would be find your market, find your hotspots, and learn how to work those. So, for me, I'm fortunate that I live in a hotspot, but you kind of have to figure out where the fish are going to be biting, so to speak, and when they're not. I don't work overnights for two reasons. One, I don't want drunk people in my car. It's not even about them being in my car. Like, I don't trust drunk people. And I'm happy. I'm so glad the service exists for it's great. If you're a drunk person, totally use Lyft or Uber. Be safe. Get home. It's just not compatible like with my frame of mind. Other drivers, they love it. They're looking forward to maybe getting some huge tip or whatever, surge pricing or whatever. Going back to the cons. So a con that's separate from me and inherent to the Lyft company is that, from what I understand, both Uber and Lyft are losing money from like competing with each other. I don't know. Lyft, if nothing else, from what I hear, is losing money. And this is like part of their thing. Like, they're still trying to get settled and build or whatever. So they keep changing their policies. It's not even just the policies. They change like stuff in the app. They'll roll out a thing that's awesome, and then it'll be gone in 3 weeks. You know, that's a thing that's legitimately a huge pisser offer. That there's so many things. Their policies change. The app interface changes. It's not like there's ever a period of time. They don't like roll things out at once and say, hey, we're gonna look at this for 3 months and then change stuff up in 3 months. It's like every 2.5 weeks, you're dealing with like a different version of, it's like this amorphous thing. So that's a big con. The freedom, pro, the inconsistency of policies and procedures. So like, even with this car, it used to be when I started, I had unlimited personal miles. Yay! Like, I could drive this bitch around, all I want. I could drive to Pittsburgh, come on back, whatever. I could do that. Just use it. It was awesome. Then it was like, no, 200 miles. So it was not as awesome. But again, that's this, I'm using their car. But the point being, it's inconsistent. I've only had this car for a year, and just the number of changes. So that would be a con. Do's and don'ts. Do find out your market, work your market, set your alarm. You have to know what your budget is, what you're trying to make in a month, and then figure out what that breaks down to on a daily basis. So like, if you say, hey, I want to make an extra $1,000 a month, so I know that, all right, I need to make $250 a week, but I really only have 3 days a week that I can guarantee that I can do this. Then you're saying, okay, I gotta get at least $80 or $90 a day. You have to figure that stuff out. You want to figure it out ahead of time before your bills catch up with you. So you're gonna have to like reverse engineer and make certain that you're hitting your own personally set quotas. So for me, like, in order for me to hit certain things that I want to, I try to get at least 15 rides a day. Mind you, that's like 6 days a week. It doesn't always work out that way because since I freelance fitness and I'm always teaching somewhere, I tend to work 7 days a week in fitness. So then you add on driving, and you just wind up being exhausted. So another con. It's not really a con, but it's something to be mindful of. That I mentioned earlier, it is a job. And even though I said it's like driving around, listening to music, there is a lot of, turning, holding, stopping, going, pressing the pedal, looking, back, all of this stuff that over the course of several hours of being in a stationary and sedentary position can become deceptively tiresome. So like, you may go home, another pro, you may go home, take a break, but then just be like, damn, I can't do this. This, like, for example, I can maybe last about 90 minutes to 2.5 hours tops doing like Philadelphia traffic, stop and go, center city, whatever. Then I'm like, I gotta turn this shit off. Like, I will contemplate quitting, driving, because I'm so sick of that center city nonsense. Then I go home and play on the internet and look at some shiny objects, and then I forget that I ever said that. Because another pro is that since you clock in and out whenever you like, your breaks you can take wherever the fuck you want. You can take them at home. I take my breaks at home because you figure I already live in my market. So there's a huge difference between, let's say you get a 60-minute, 90-minute, even if you got a 2-hour break at your 9 to 5, where are you taking that shit at? You're sitting in somebody's break room, like still on the company grounds. You're going over maybe to the mall, or you're sitting at Wendy's, and you're just wasting time away. I am in bed. Dude, I'm in my shorts, t-shirt, watching Netflix, microwaving stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like a legitimate break. It's like so refreshing. It's like when you go back out to drive again, it's like almost like a new day, because it's a new day. Yes, it is. That's huge. So when people ask me, like, how long do you normally work? I can tell them, well, I might get started at 8 a.m. I might not get done until 10 p.m. But that's because I went from like 8 to 9:30, then went home and took a break from 9:30 to 11, then drove from 11 to 2 or 3, and then took a break from 3 to 5, and then went back out and started hitting it, and was going back to back to back until like 9, 10 o'clock. So, so that's a huge pro. Still, do's and don'ts. Do the main thing, like I said, find your market, learn when the fish are biting, learn when they aren't. Be patient. Like, I don't have road rage, but I get frustrated like anybody. And like, when there's no passengers in the car, there's all kinds of cusses coming out of my mouth when somebody does something ridiculous. But you can't be that way when there's passengers. So you have to, do mind your frustrations, do mind your personal biases and or grievances. So like, you will eventually have a passenger in your car, maybe talking with their friend or on the phone or whatever, talking about something that you really disagree with. You're gonna have somebody that is gonna be like, well, if you really take a look at what Hitler was trying to do, I mean, you gotta give him you gotta really. And, you're going to get some of those. I've had to sit in the car with I actually posted this story a while ago on my Facebook page about just this one night where I had just back to back just raving lunatics, where the last person propositioned me for sex. But okay, another Lyft related con is that Lyft doesn't do a good enough job of getting bad passengers out of the system. So let's say, I'm sort of exaggerating, but I'm not. Let's say a passenger like hits you in the back of the head with a dildo, pow, and you report them to Lyft. Hey, well, they'll send you back like this generic email that says like, hey, we're sorry about the event. We have taken the appropriate steps with this passenger, and we assure you that you'll never be paired with them again. Okay, well, that's well and good, but I want to hear we've deactivated this person, and now they're not going to be paired with anybody else again. Because, okay, great. I don't want to get hit in the head with a dildo, but nobody else does either. So why let that? And there have been too many times where I've picked up a low-rated passenger. You can rate your passengers, but it doesn't do any good if the lower ratings don't add up to them being booted out. So that's another one. That's another con that I'm like, dude, Lyft. I've had somebody try to sell me weed. I've had a person like threaten me over the phone for not canceling their ride when they tell whatever. And I'm like, still, I get the same generic email response. I don't feel like, maybe they did deactivate them, but you should be able to tell me, hey, they've been deactivated. Oh, another con. Just Lyft's customer service as pertains to like its driver and Lyft communication sucks. You gotta like email, you have to find the right series of drop downs to send them a message or to get them to call you back. Now, I kind of understand that for like passengers, but there's way fewer of the drivers than there are passengers, and excuse me, we should be able to have ready access to. So that's another huge con. That is another huge con. The fact that you just can't call Lyft or send them an email directly. There isn't a, driver help at whatever. But again, the freedom, and that's for all of these things, all of these frustrations, the fact that I can stop driving at any time, really helps to alleviate a lot of those pressures. Because, think about how many times at your regular job you might have said, oh my God, fuck that, I want to be out. Imagine if you could just literally up and leave work without there being any consequences, without HR calling you. This vendor is getting on your nerves and this customer is yelling at you, whatever, and blah, 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 blah. And you're just like, I'm going to go watch Jessica Jones. Yeah. Ooh. But that's con. Do's and don'ts. Like I was saying, manage, be patient, manage your frustrations. Don't let the stress of the road translate into a bad passenger experience. But that's something that I'm sure you've heard. Like I don't know if you might be a performer. I don't know. but you'll hear performers or other workers say you got to leave it at home. This is a little bit tougher since like this issue is like following you down the road in the form of like maybe a bad passenger, but also with a due, male or female, male, female, or non, trust your gut. If you're feeling that something's off, like if you drive up to a house or home or whatever, and the person isn't where they said they were supposed to be, and can you come around, and you just cancel the ride, move on, just go away. They'll call somebody else. So definitely trust your gut. I would recommend, it's a lot easier to cancel a ride before they get in the car than it is to cancel the ride after they've gotten in. So sometimes you're just gonna have bad rides and you're gonna have to suck it up. You're gonna have the person who requested a shared ride, but then mysteriously has like a kid with them and 2 carts of groceries. And you'll have that person that chose a shared ride and they have 2 people with them, but they only mark down 1 person, and then they have a bunch of stuff and so on and so forth. You have to decide. It's a lot easier to, like, if you pull up and see that they got a bunch of stuff and they didn't call, cancel it and keep on. Assuming that there's a clear path. But again, like, you don't want to wait until the person's in your car, then try to tell them to get out. I have heard stories of people doing that. I've heard stories of it going well. I've heard stories of it going poorly. But I also, as best as I can remember, the stories of it going well, or as far, were from like guys. I don't know. I don't know how much of a difference that makes. If it's, a testosterone factor. I don't know. But again, trust your gut before you let that passenger in. Stay aware. Be aware of your surroundings, regardless. I don't do this as much. Like when I pull up to, I'm hardly on my phone or on anything else if it's nighttime and I pull up to an establishment or whatever. I don't have my head down looking at my other phone or my tablet, especially since the light, not only is it going to blind me, like when I look up I'm not going to be able to see, but other people can see, they can see you because those lights in your face, and they can see that you can't see them. But stay aware. Also, regardless of what a passenger says, park where it's safe. Like, if you drive up, like, park where it's safe and where you're not going to be getting into a potential road rage incident from holding up traffic. If somebody calls you and they live on a goddamn 1-lane street, right? And they're not outside when you get there or at the door, or, they're not coming out in like 5 seconds, or, say, then you gotta move and park so that the traffic isn't backed up and whatever. And people will be like, hey, you come back. But what? So that's the other thing. You gotta be mindful that a lot of people don't drive at all. So they have no concept of what makes sense from a logistical standpoint as pertains to being a driver. That, hey, whatever, like, I was across the street. People try to call me, like, on Market Street. They'll put in like the wrong address. They'll put in like pick me up here or whatever. And the Lyft app thinks here is like across the street. So I'm across the street. And they don't double check. And that's another thing. People, it's not, one of the cons is like the passengers not knowing how to use the app. So I might be on Market Street, which is like 4 or 5 lanes wide. And like, hey, I'm over here. Oh, what do you think I'm gonna do? I'm not making a U-turn. And it's center city, so I'm not gonna go all the way the heck around. Sit in traffic here, sit in traffic here, sit in traffic. Go around this moving truck, sit in traffic. Go, oh, construction, You take your ass to the crosswalk, walk on over, right? But yeah, do trust your gut. Don't put yourself in any unsafe situations. Don't put yourself in a situation that might incur road rage. Just be the bigger, safer person. Generally, how much does a person make? All right, so the 2 biggest factors in that are how much you drive and when you drive. So it's how many hours, or how much time you allot to driving, how many rides you get in that time, and then how much those particular rides pay. So like rides, when there's more demand, there's the ride amount, the ride pay goes up. Less demand, it goes down, right? But anyway, a ballpark relative to my experience in this car, because it's been over a year since I was using my personal car. And even then, when I was using my personal car, it was way part-time. This that I'm doing now is kind of half-time, but still part-time, like if my fitness stuff was consistent, like like I said, I do freelance, and if my average week stayed average, it would be enough to cover all my expenses. But since I don't know, I tend to drive this more. But anyway, the point being, how much can you anticipate making? I can tell you that in this situation with me having this car, and I know that there's a period of time where I was doing this full time for like about 3 months or so. And in that time, if I drove like 135 rides a week, which is a little less than 30 rides a day over the course of 5 days, that the minimum that would get deposited into my account would be roughly $750. Oh, other cons is that you don't get taxes taken out. You gotta like file that at the end, I mean, which I do, but you're hoping that the amount, I mean, you're hoping that that your expenses exceed, whatever amount you would have had to have paid in taxes, and so that you get a refund instead of owing. So that's kind of a con, but that's just like a nature of being an independent contractor. So that doesn't really have anything to do with Lyft. But how much? So the minimum that was put into my account was $750, without taxes taken out. Then, but it wasn't odd for me to see like 900, eight something. And then there's at least 1 week where I made like $1,000. I know when I had my own car, like during like the blizzards, snowstorms and stuff like that, man, I made like $350 in a day and probably like $850 in that week part-time. You know, I was working elsewhere. So I would say that on average, you should expect each ride to pay, I want to say about $5 an hour, but it varies. Like the least that you're going to get paid for, I said $5 per ride. The least you're going to get paid per ride is, I think it's like $3.73. The most is, you know, if they decide, hey, I need to go to Atlantic City, then that's like a $70 ride. So it's all over the place, but more that muchly. I also tell people it's like the minimum per hour that you should expect to make, you know, from just having your app on at random, would be $10 an hour. That's the minimum. And that's relative to my market, which is Philadelphia. The most that I shouldn't say the most, the least that you would expect to make during peak times is $20 an hour, right? And it could be more than that depending on when you're driving. Is it New Year's? Is it whatever, you know, right? So the more hours you drive, the less you're going to make on average per hour, because you're going to have a lot more slow periods. Like you're not going to be making as much at, you know, 11:45 a.m. out in the county as you would 5:30 p.m. in Center City, right? But again, even with that variance, the number one pro is that you can work whenever you like. So if you want to get up and drive around at 7 days a week and make that dough, you can do that, which you can't do it like a regular job. If you worked at Wendy's, you know, you couldn't just show up and decide that you wanted more hours and need to work, so you just start cooking and frying and stuff. So that pro is like a huge advantage and helps to compensate for a lot of other things that would otherwise, you know, be probably a deal breaker in a normal situation. But it's, you know, if you have a lot of free time, it's a pretty easy gig. If you don't have a lot of free time, it's not nearly as easy because you're trying to squeeze time in. You're trying to squeeze in rides. But then again, you do have that option that, hey, oh, you know, got sent home from work 2 hours early, or, oh, Sharon and so-and-so canceled their plans, so now I have like this 2.5 hour gap. Just turn the app on and drive. So, you know, you can put it in destination mode, even though you can only do that like 6 times a day, where you only accept rides that are going towards where you're heading, you know. So that's about it, I think. If you have any other questions, let me know. Ray Reese, Reese's Masterpieces. See ya. Bye-bye.